thank you for coming. My name is Alex Cornell-DeHue, and I'm president and co-founder of Elected Officials to Protect America. EOPA is a nonpartisan network of current and former elected officials who care deeply about protecting our planet and our people from the dangers of the climate crisis while ensuring environmental justice and protecting our lands, waters, and democracy. We're led by veterans and those on the front lines of the climate crisis. We're excited to be here on the second anniversary of the Inflation Reduction Act. And this is pretty historic because there's very few countries in the world have invested this much in protecting our people and planet from the dangers of the climate crisis while empowering them through economic investments that are improving the quality of lives in our communities, particularly Justice 40 communities in the United States. So I'd like to talk about it from a global to local standpoint. Because that's where I came into the idea and really the work of the climate crisis and becoming aware of how important it is for our international and national security. I was deployed to the Marine Corps in Fallujah when I was Marine Corps grunt or infantry. And it was one of those really hot days where if you hold the rifle, you could only grab it for a couple seconds without gloves because it's so hot. And on a routine patrol, my vehicle was hit by a roadside bomb. Fortunately, as the dust was clearing, we were able to catch the guy who did it. And he wasn't very good at his job, so we were fine. But we did find him, tied him up, put him back in the vehicle, and cordoned off the area and started an investigation. And what we found was he was paid by Al-Qaeda to plant the roadside bomb because his crops had failed due to a massive drought. And now we know due to the climate crisis. And as a young Marine, the pieces of the puzzle didn't click in right there, right here. But sitting on post for hours and hours and looking at the same rocks, and the pieces start to fit together. And then when I got elected to the Maine legislature, I started meeting other veterans who had similar stories. And this actually wasn't all that uncommon, this what happened, because 1 out of 24 convoys had a casualty, and the two things we transported the most were water and oil. And so we started working with other veterans from around the US and formed a lucid coalition, and eventually it formed into Elected Officials to Protect America. And what really struck me by talking to the other veterans who had similar stories is how we're deeply, unfortunately, connected to the single source of energy that was causing danger in Iraq for me, my company, my squad, and the people around us. And so, in a very sad way, we're dependent on autocratic dictators for this source of energy, which is making the world less safe. Fortunately, right now, the biggest case of that is Putin. In 2014, we would have had a much stronger response if Europe wasn't dependent on Russian gas. So, when we looked at the Inflation Reduction Act, it inspired EOPA and us to how can we help global security? And that really is through an energy security Marshall Plan for Ukraine. And many of the components in the IRA actually is what we need to help create an energy shield in Europe. Because it makes us resilient. Right? The wonderful thing about clean energy that is being invested in the US and globally is solar panels can be repaired in 6 hours. Wind turbines can be put up right next to a war zone because they're such hard targets, the little toothpicks, but the missile that can take them out costs more than the wind turbine. In fact, Ukraine has 19 of them, 60 miles from the front lines right now, and they're still operating. And they built them during a war zone too. So Ukraine can be an energy shield because it could potentially power Europe 6 times over, and we can build a clean energy there much faster than almost anywhere in Europe. And taking the same principles from the IRA, the investment tax credits, the production tax credits, the manufacturing, including the insurance side, all these components, the historic investments from the IRA, can be an example to the world to make us more secure. And that's one of the reasons why domestically, we came back to the US and we're like, okay, how do we actually implement this really well in the US so that it can be that example, that inspiration for other countries to jump in and increase our national and international security. So we formed a task force to elected officials to protect America, to really bring elected officials together so we knew what's out there, because it's a historic $370 billion. That's never happened in the US, right? And we want to get that to the communities that care the most about it and need it the most, because a lot of them have been left behind, frankly, in the past. And they don't know the criteria, what's happening, and how to write the grants to get it. So the task force is with elected officials from all across America, local to federal, bringing them together to educate and get the resources to where it's needed in partnership with the DOE and others. And speaking of the Department of Energy, their state and community energy programs are doing amazing work with Chris Castor and the team there to make sure this funding do get to the states. The loan office there has exciting investments that have never been done before to bring clean energy into the technologies and make sure steel or concrete can actually be decarbonized, which is very, very possible, but it does require those investments from a loan office to do that. And also, I mean, of course, the EPA Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, that is directly, right now, helping communities who've never had this opportunity before, to bring solar panels to our houses, right? Because that is something that is unbelievably needed to reduce energy costs. And one thing that's really wonderful about the Inflation Reduction Act, it actually is fiscally responsible, right? The IRA would like to reduce the federal deficit over a decade by $175 billion. The CBO, or the Congressional Budget Office, put the investment of the IRA's climate provisions at about $730 billion. The budgetary savings starting at 2028. So we can actually have cake and ice cream. It's reducing our dependence on oil. It's making us more secure. It's making our communities healthier. And overall, it's making our planet be protected from the environmental degradations that's happening. So we are excited to have leaders from around the US here today. We have local elected officials and actresses who play an amazing role in the universe with Star Trek. So I'd love to start and introduce Yetide Badaki, who's an actress, writer, and producer. You might know her from Star Trek and American Gods. So thank you.
Good morning. And I would love to take this opportunity to thank you all for being here celebrating the second anniversary of the Inflation Reduction Act. I would also love to thank Alex and the EOPA for everything that you have done and everything that you continue to do. I feel I must mention that standing here right now in this capacity is part of a dream for me. As a young girl growing up in Nigeria, listening to stories by the fire, I was captivated by the power of stories. And further on screen, one particular story influenced my entire worldview. Star Trek Next Generation led me to believe there was a possibility of a future where we could grow up, where we could evolve, where we could do better. I have since been privileged to be able to play roles where I'm able to express my views on equality, on democracy, on freedom. The inner 5-year-old Nigerian girl was thrilled when Star Trek gave me the opportunity to be a part of their family. And it was with the inspiration and with the clarity of the writers of Star Trek Strange New Worlds that in the second season, in the second episode, we saw the comparison between the United Federation of Planets and our United States both believe in liberty and justice for all, and both, sadly, sometimes fall short due to embedded biases and antiquated laws. That is why I am excited by the Inflation Reduction Act. It is a climate justice law. To achieve equality, we must solve and work for environmental justice for all. The Inflation Reduction Act's focus on environmental justice and justice for the areas is historic, and it puts us on that path. Environmental justice thriving communities, technical assistance centers, have been established by the EPA to help communities apply for the funding and cutting through the bureaucracy that we all know can exist even in Starfleet. There is a lot of Inflation Reduction Act money yet to be allocated with the investments in clean air, climate resilience, and environmental justice. And we find ourselves on the cusp of a clean energy revolution. We find ourselves entering into a hopeful future. We find that we have the opportunity to do better. The arc of justice takes time. The arc of justice takes dedicated people. The arc of justice takes patience. Justice for all is the only true justice. When I think of the environmental justice leaders, I'm getting verklempt, the civil rights leaders who have come before us, I'm humbled when I think of civil rights, women's rights, equal rights, especially equal voting rights. I see that this law may move us towards a more perfect union, towards that better future, to a true American democracy. Thank you.
Good morning, good morning. It is indeed an opportunity to share and speak about the importance of transitioning to a clean energy world for our health and for our prosperity. My name is Dr. Donya, Sartor, and I'm the 16th mayor for the city of Jonesboro. Jonesboro is a beautiful city located just south of the world's busiest airport, Atlanta Hartsfield International Airport. I'm excited to share with you a pivotal moment in my decision to run for mayor and how the Inflation Reduction Act is so important to me and my community. There's this individual that lives in our community named Mr. Elmore. And right now, he's actually sitting in my city hall watching C-SPAN. Mr. Elmore, you inspired me on your mobility scooter that he uses to navigate through the streets of Jonesboro. And I worried about Mr. Elmore navigating that scooter in our Georgia heat. He has health issues and he doesn't have a car. And if you're like me, you get this alert frequently in Georgia that says we have a code orange or a code red alert. And what does that mean? That means that the outdoor air quality isn't safe for people with health issues like Mr. Elmore. While some were still debating if this global warming was real, I saw its impact for my community. And I knew that if I became mayor, that I could have the conversations about climate crisis because we weren't having it in our town hall. We weren't putting these topics on our agenda. So let's fast forward to a few months after the signing of this historic Inflation Reduction Act. I finally became mayor and I can make these changes, these systemic changes in our community. One thing I learned really quickly as a newly elected official, you can bring awareness to issues, but if you don't bring funding to issues, you don't see change in those issues. The Inflation Reduction Act helps give me the policy-making power, but also gives me the technical assistance as well as the funding to make changes in our community. Georgia alone received $219 million to help to implement home energy rebate programs. And as a mayor, it's my responsibility to share this information with our constituents so that they're aware of the tax credits and the rebates and how they can save up to 41% in their monthly energy bills by replacing and upgrading their appliances. I'm also really proud of our local school district, Clayton County Public Schools, under the leadership of Dr. Anthony Smith, our superintendent, and Jesse Gorey, our board chair. We received $20 million to replace our diesel fuel vehicles and buses. And now 2 weeks ago when our school started, we had 25 of those buses transporting our most precious cargo to and from school. Clean energy buses mean less headaches, less dizziness, less nausea. Also, it doesn't trigger the asthma attacks because they're not inhaling the nitrogen oxide that's given off by so many of the diesel vehicles. The Inflation Reduction Act is helping to level the playing field for small cities like Jonesboro all across America. No longer will someone's zip code define or impede them from having access to clean energy, clean air, and prosperity. I want to personally thank President Biden, his administration, and all of the lawmakers for their contribution to the Inflation Reduction Act. Just so you know, I still worry about Mr. Elmore and all of my citizens, but I worry just a little less because we're 2 years closer to a cleaner, greener Jonesboro and to a cleaner, greener America. Thank you so much.
Morning, everyone. My name is Alex Walker-Griffin, and I have the distinct pleasure of serving as a member of the Hercules City Council, located about 20 minutes away from San Francisco. I'm excited to be here. 2 years into the Inflation Reduction Act, and we're already seeing progress being made in this country. Listen, I'm a California boy born and raised, and we're known for a couple of things: beautiful coastlines, beautiful weathers, but unfortunately, we're also known for fires, like the one we have raging on in my home state right now. In 2018, as a private first class, I mobilized to the campfire in Paradise, California, our state's most deadliest and destructive fire. It was the first time in my life that I ever drove through smoke, fog, and rain all at the same time. To arrive to Paradise in Magalia, California, to see nothing but burnt cars, destroyed lives, and destroyed stories. And I remember one morning as me and my unit were getting ready to roll out for the next mission, I remember thinking to myself, how can we have something like this happen? To see the tears in the eyes of the residents that I came in contact with during my time in Paradise was something that I will forever live with. To know the stories of the deceased that came from the event is something that I will never forget. But out of darkness, through the ashes, comes beauty. When I became an elected official in 2020, I told myself I would be committed to making sure that we never have a Paradise fire like we had in Paradise in Magalia just several years ago. But that's exactly why I'm optimistic and I'm excited about the Inflation Reduction Act. You see, even though I'm a California boy, my dad hails from Gary, Indiana. And if you know the story of Gary, Indiana, you know it's a prideful community, a strong community with a rich history in steel manufacturing. Unfortunately, the steel manufacturing plant has reduced its reductions greatly, obviously impacting the community. But what this act does, the Inflation Reduction Act does, it invests into every corner of this country, something we haven't seen since the New Deal under President FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. So first, I want to thank President Biden and his administration and all the lawmakers just down the road for their efforts to invest into this country. But this is not just the law. This is a change of pace. This is a change of life for this country. Let me tell you right now, this is job creation. This is opportunity making, something we haven't seen before. And for many of us, this is a change in lifestyle. This is investing in Kentucky. This is investing in California. This is investing in Wisconsin, Washington. Every corner of this country will be impacted by the jobs this creates. 9 million jobs are expected to be created out of this job. In addition to that, by 2030, we're expected to reduce 40% of our carbon emissions. So on top of having good paying union jobs, we'll have a reduction in our greenhouse gases. Literally everyone can breathe a little bit easier with this act. So we thank President Biden again. But as we look forward to the future, there's a couple of things that I also we're investing into our communities. In Hercules, California, we're a bayside city. We sit right along the San Pablo Bay coastline. And you know what President Biden, working with President Biden and my Congressman John Yermin, we were able to do? We were able to secure $850,000 for our Hercules hub. Now, what is the Hercules hub, you might ask? It's one of the best things ever, and I'm a little biased when I say it's the best project in America. Ferry, train, bus service, and housing along our waterfront. In addition to the beauty of California, we're also known for a little something called traffic. And I live 17 miles away from San Francisco, and it takes me an hour and a half to get home. That's emissions on the road. That's time lost. To have a ferry and train and bus service connect my city to San Francisco, it allows more cars to get off the road. It allows more people to get back to their lives. And it also improves our health while we're doing it. So while we continue to invest in our communities and we continue to make sure that our communities are safe, both physically, by lowering rates of asthma, not seeing some of these catastrophic events, we have to remember that it is up to us to continue to be the stewards of our community and working with great people like President Biden and all of his administration to further pursue the goals that is making this world a better place, that is making this union more strong, and making our country better than it's ever been. Thank you.
Thank you for coming today, and it's my pleasure to talk about the IRA. I am Marshall Archer. I'm the deputy mayor of Saco. It's a very small town, about 20,000 in Maine. And as a deputy mayor of Saco, in a small coastal city in Maine, I stand to you before to underscore the critical importance of the Inflation Reduction Act in our collective journey towards a clean energy economy. This act is not just policy change, it's a lifeline for communities like ours that are on the front lines of climate change and economic transition. Having served 2 tours in Iraq as a Marine, I have seen firsthand the inefficiencies and national security risk that arise from our reliance on fossil fuels in combat zones. The transportation of these fuels across dangerous terrains not only endanger lives, but also demand additional resources for convoys protecting them. I remember the countless hours of heightened risk involved in protecting fuel convoys, knowing that every drop of fuel was both vital but vulnerable. The reliance on fossil fuels is a vulnerability that we can no longer afford to ignore, whether on the battlefield or at home. It is clear that energy independence and security are not just environmental concerns, but that of a national security imperative. In Saco, the impacts of climate change are not distant possibilities, they are tangible realities that we face every day. Rising sea levels and increasing severe weather events are eroding our coastline, damaging property and putting immense pressure on our infrastructure. Each year, we dedicate a significant portion of our budget to fix these infrastructures created by climate change. While these reactive measures are, while necessary and not enough, we must be proactive in building resiliency in our defenses against the inevitable changes that, most importantly, in transitioning to sustainable resources, energy sources that will reduce the root causes of these challenges. As a workforce development professional, I see the Inflation Reduction Act as a catalyst for opportunity, especially for the individuals in Justice 40 communities. Those historically marginalized and disproportionately affected by environmental injustice, the IRA is not just about clean energy, it is about equity. Creating pathways for individuals who have been left behind by the traditional economy to steps into good paying jobs in industries that will define the vocational standards for the next generation. These jobs are solar, wind, energy efficiency, and clean transportation. Industries that are poised to grow rapidly as we continue to build a more sustainable future. The IRA is an investment in security, prosperity, and our health. It includes substantial support for fighting climate resiliency and environmental justice. Over the next decade, it's expected to create approximately 150,000 more jobs across the nation. These jobs represent more than just employment. They are a pathway to a stronger, more resilient economy that works for everyone. They offer the promise of revitalizing communities, providing livelihoods, and ensuring the transition to a clean energy economy leaves no one behind. For coastal communities like myself, the IRA promises more than 50,000 jobs from investments aimed at protecting us from climate change. It's about safeguarding our way of life, our community heritage, and our homes. All of these are at risk. And if we do not take actions that the IRA provides with us the tools to not only defend against these threats, but to transform them into opportunities of growth and resiliency. The Inflation Reduction Act is more than just legislation. It is a roadmap to a brighter, more secure future for our city, for our state, and for our nation. It offers us the chance to address the challenges of today while laying the foundations of success. It is a vision of a future where the economy is not only strong, but sustainable, where our communities are not only protected, but thriving. Let's seize the opportunity to work together to build a clean energy economy that benefits everyone, ensuring that future inheritances is safer, healthier. This is our moment to act, and the Inflation Reduction Act is what we need to get this done. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Fred Quinn III. As a councilman representing Swissdale, Pennsylvania, right outside the vibrant city of Pittsburgh, it is my honor on the second anniversary to discuss how the Biden-Harris Inflation Reduction Act is transforming my community and bringing substantial benefits to the people that I serve. Growing up, I never seen myself becoming a councilman, but the pandemic of 2020 changed everything for me. Watching my community grapple with hunger, housing issues, job insecurity, and limited access to healthcare was a wake-up call. Being only 30 at the time, I felt nervous and I thought I couldn't make it. Talking to neighbors and volunteering with people in need helped give me the hope and determination I needed to run. I realized if I wanted to make a real difference, I had to step up. So, with the encouragement of those around me, especially my mother, my friends, and my work colleagues at Penn State University, I took the leap. Now, at 33 years old, I am proud to say that I became one of the youngest members ever elected for Swissvale Borough, driven by my passion to improve the lives of those around me. In my 33 years, I've seen our region spend millions on power washing structures such as the Cathedral of Learning on the University of Pittsburgh's campus, due to the grime left on it from air pollution. Even still today, no matter what the weather is like, you can walk down the street and smell sulfur in the air due to the poor air quality from pollution. Can you imagine what this is doing to our lungs, especially those without access to healthcare? This is how the Inflation Reduction Act is helping those in my community. The Inflation Reduction Act has brought in $396 million to Pennsylvania, and has helped the people of my community in many ways. First and foremost, let's talk about jobs. This legislation is set to generate over 43,000 new jobs across Pennsylvania by 2030. These aren't just any jobs. These are well-paying jobs that provide stable and are in the clean energy sector. In Pittsburgh, we are already seeing this impact. Companies like the Prismian Group are expanding their manufacturing capabilities and support our energy infrastructure, creating jobs and driving economic growth. The economic benefits extend beyond job creation. The Inflation Reduction Act offers significant rebates for clean energy technologies, such as solar panels, electric vehicles, and energy-efficient appliances. For families in my community, this means substantial savings on energy bills. Imagine reducing your household's energy expenses by more than $1,800 annually. This financial relief can make a big difference, particularly for those in lower income brackets. Moreover, the act is fostering a cleaner, healthier environment for all. By encouraging the adoption of renewable energy sources, we are cutting down on greenhouse gas emissions and improving air quality. This is crucial for a city like Pittsburgh, which has historically dealt with industrial pollution. The Goonie Solar Project, for example, will generate enough clean energy to power 33,000 homes annually, significantly contributing to our sustainability goals. Support for our local nonprofits and municipalities is another critical point of this bill. The Heinz endowments are spearheading initiatives to help our local organizations access these federal funds. This support is vital for projects like installing solar panels in schools and on community centers, which would otherwise be financially out of reach. By helping with grant writing and project development, we are ensuring that the Pittsburgh region can fully benefit from these opportunities. Infrastructure upgrades are also a key focus. We are seeing investments in electric vehicles and charging stations, including our first EV charging station just recently installed in Swissvale, and energy efficient building retrofits and more. These projects are not just about sustainability. They are about creating a resilient and a future-proof urban environment for my region. The broader social and health benefits of the Inflation Reduction Act cannot be overstated. Lower emissions means better air quality and improved public health outcomes. The Inflation Reduction Act is more than just legislation. It is a catalyst for positive change in the Pittsburgh region. It brings jobs, economic savings, environmental improvements, and a crucial support for our local projects. Together, we are building a stronger, more sustainable, healthier Pittsburgh region for today and for future generations. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Am I coming through? Yes. So to return to the Star Trek theme, I'm Heidi Roddenberry with the Roddenberry Foundation, and I'm honored to be here today with elected officials to protect America and to applaud the bold vision of the Inflation Reduction Act, to celebrate the achievements that have been made, and to appeal for more fervent progress. Gene Roddenberry, my father-in-law, said once that we as a species are currently just children. Yet someday, when we grow up, we are going to be something. And I think that the IRA investments are a big step towards finally growing up. At the Roddenberry Foundation, we are about big, bold ideas for catalytic change, and that we can do more together, helping us get to that optimistic future that Star Trek offered us. And having an infrastructure supporting an energy independence gets us closer to that goal. Today, I would like to share two stories of how the Roddenberry Foundation has worked toward this goal of universal thriving. First, we all know how vital water is for life. So now imagine my shock when I met Dr. Oriana Retchiger from the J. Craig Venter Institute at a high school in San Marcos, down in San Diego, California, that has a really impressive agriculture program. We were standing near the pig pen where the pigs were rolling around in the ground in the mud because it was a really hot day. Now they're cute, but the smell, wow, that was something. And so that's when Oriana walked us to the back to show us her microbial fuel cell. This incredible filtration device can take black water, like from the Big Ben, and clean it into potable water that can be used for landscaping, or it can have a UV light as an added filtration system to make it drinking water. And yes, I enjoyed a glass of clean water that day, which the pigs had been enjoying a little bit earlier. And I'm here, I'm good. Also, the system is net positive. So that means that it doesn't draw any energy because those microbes create the energy to literally run the process. And this incredible invention went from research to commercial application, and now is a wastewater treatment plant called Aquacycle. This is how philanthropy can support innovative technologies that can help us all achieve energy independence and universal thriving. So this is a message that I have for my fellow philanthropists. Consider joining us with your gifts to help de-risk early stage investments. That's going to help bring them to market faster, and then we can help support these larger infrastructure investments like the IRA. The other story that I'd like to share, which is truly close to my heart, is about the Contentment Foundation. When I first met Dr. Daniel Cordaro, we debated how one could increase empathy for others. From there, I saw school children who had learned how to quietly take a moment for themselves if they ever felt overwhelmed, so that they could then collect themselves and return feeling whole and secure and to continue participating in class. They had been taught the tools of positive psychology from a tier 1 mental health support system so that they have more self-awareness and can use emotional regulation tools to help them contribute to their communities. With teenage suicide rates being the second leading cause of death among children in this country, we are in a severe mental health crisis. And all the initiatives that we undertake must include well-being so that our children can be taught the evidence-based tools to build coping skills and resilience so they can face this new world of ours and they can arrive whole and thrive. So as you see, the IRA investments and the Roddenberry Foundation's efforts align. And as we strive to support our country with a clean, safe, equitable, and reliable energy-independent infrastructure, which thereby will support the planet, we can all work toward our shared goal of universal thriving. Thank you.
Good morning, I'm Jordan Mead and I'm a county councillor from Gravesend in England. It is a pleasure to join you across the pond, to be here in this great and beautiful city of Washington, DC, and a privilege of a lifetime to be standing here at the National Press Club. On this anniversary of the Inflation Reduction Act, I today want to hammer home what this landmark legislation means from a British perspective, and how and why the United States, along with her allies, must continue to assert leadership and influence in this important sphere. If we row back to the year of 1989, it was British Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher who, in a significant address to the UN General Assembly, first warned of those dangers of climate change, and why politicians from across the political divide should come together and place environmental protection and standards at the forefront of international policy setting. 35 years later, and on this anniversary, we should revisit Thatcher's foresight and consider how, and importantly why, the Inflation Reduction Act should not only just be a shelved American policy, but instead should be and must become the pillar of global stability and influence, particularly as our shared values and that common inheritance of which Thatcher spoke are under attack from the savagery of rogue states and hostile regimes. From the importance of targeted fiscal measures that address both the symptoms and root causes of economic instability, to how the Act harnesses and unlocks the power of market-based solutions to drive environmental progress. For Britain, for Europe, and indeed for the world, there are critical takeaways from this Act, which I hope at least elements of will be integrated into our domestic policy setting and our thinking in the future. Now, I'm proud to be an elected member of Kent County Council, a local authority which over the last decade has made significant progress in environmental policies. We have, since 2010, reduced our greenhouse gas emissions by some 83%. And from heating decarbonisation, solar farms, investment in heat pumps, draft proofing our own buildings and schools, my colleagues across Kent are showing how local authorities are leading the way when it comes to tackling climate change. Kent has achieved success through raising challenges and indeed through having the desire and a commitment to placing people at the centre of these challenges. It is in this context that I'm now drawn to recall how my county has worked with local schools in our area to install solar panels, which in turn has saved our schools thousands of pounds for reinvestment into education. and how my colleagues are now importantly working on transforming the Kent Pension Fund by recognizing the important role that investors have to play in driving the transition to low carbon energy. Now, Kent is famously referred to as the Garden of England, and indeed 71% of our landscape is actively farmed. We have some of the most fertile soil, some of the best growing weather in the whole of Britain. And from our ancient woodlands to our chalk streams, to our old orchards, our beautiful vineyards, and our meadows, I want to highlight the importance of preserving these spaces. When considering climate change, we often neglect the need of food security, and we must collectively do so much more in this space. We must protect our agricultural land and assets from the bulldozers of destruction and development. For once this land is gone, it is gone forever, and with that goes our food security. And continuing on that topic of food security, I have visited Ukraine frequently since Russia's illegal invasion, seeing firsthand the butchery and barbarism that the Russian state is inflicting on the Ukrainian people. Ukraine is the food basket of the world, and we must never lose sight of the fact that Ukraine's struggle is our struggle for freedom, our struggle for opportunity, and our struggle for prosperity. All of these ideals for too long in the West, we've taken for granted. I have been to schools in previously occupied towns across the Chernihiv region in Ukraine, where pictures of the Statue of Liberty now hang on the wall against pictures of Big Ben, because those are the ideals that Ukrainians cherish, and those are the ideals that we so desperately should be helping them to uphold. Through the UK Friends of Ukraine and elected officials to protect America, we will continue to highlight how Ukraine should and must be part of securing energy and food security in our world over the years ahead. We further need region-to-region cooperation when it comes to supporting Ukraine's future. And I'm again proud that Kent is leading the way in this charge, and Kent is about to sign a historic landmark agreement with the Chernihiv Oblast in Ukraine, and I'm thrilled to say that central to that are clauses on sustainability and agricultural advancement. I will conclude by directly pleading to the people of the United States to never lose sight of your responsibility as the leader of our free world. On my visits to Ukraine, I have seen why the USA, hand in hand with Great Britain and her allies, must never forget that through collective strength, we can and will suppress evil. As Churchill once prophesied, the people of the United States must never, ever lose sight of those facts. And he famously said, in the days to come, British and American peoples will, for their own safety and for the good of all, walk together side by side in majesty, in justice, and in peace. And in the context of Ukraine, that duty for us to stand firm, to uphold those principles of freedom, democracy, and liberty must now be called on again. So whatever the outcome of your election in November, I pray that this great nation will keep alive and keep burning that flame of Lady Liberty, and burn it brightly so that together we can strive for peace and prosperity in this ever troubled world. Thank you.
Well, thank you everyone for those truly inspiring speeches. So we have a number of questions from online that have been broadcasted, and then we clearly have some amazing folks in the room who probably have questions as well. I'm seeing two themes right now in the online questions. One focusing on energy security, as we've seen, looking at how the Inflation Reduction Act makes us more secure at home and abroad, and then also the impact on Justice 40 communities. So I'm going to combine a couple of these questions because we only have about 15 minutes left. since we did just hear from the UK perspective on energy security, this question probably sums up the combination of them. Saying, what do you think will be the impact of the Inflation Reduction Act on our national and energy security? I'll start with just saying that if we think about what controls most of the energy security in the world is OPEC. And who runs OPEC? Every single one of them are autocratic dictators. If you look at OPEC Plus, it's almost all dictators. The US produces a decent amount of oil and gas, but it can never supply the world. And this infrastructure is extremely vulnerable, as we've seen in Ukraine. So to make sure that we're energy secure, we've got to be able to move away from oil and gas. It's as simple as that. And in fact, the world moving away from fossil fuels is an existential threat to Putin. It is something that the dictators of the world fear the most in many ways because it reduces their influence exponentially, while solving the existential threat of climate change. So you get a benefit in both. Again, cake and ice cream. So that big picture wise, but when we look at the tactical side of it, there's a reason why the US military bases are becoming smart, clean energy grids, and they will be by 2035. It's because we know that it's more resilient and it's more secure and it's cheaper. And in the case of natural disasters, which results in migration of populations and insecurity, right? Ensuring that our infrastructure is resilient is also energy security. And what we found is that because it's distributed, it's easy to repair, it's cheaper to produce, it's win-win-win. And the result is we have a more secure United States and a more secure world. So what I'd love to pass it off to is maybe some of the other veterans who can highlight maybe in your local community or globally, or maybe universally in the Star Trek universe, how energy security that is being enabled through the policies and the investments in the IRA is making us more secure. So. Alex.
Well, just like in school for me, there was always another Alex in the classroom. So, so thank you, Alex. So, in California, if you're familiar with some of the stuff that you'll see online, you'll know our gas prices are pretty high. I think it was maybe, 2 summers ago now, gas prices were minimum $6.50, $7. And that's just like in my area, the suburbs. And when you start hitting some of the more tourist areas, let's say San Francisco or LA, the prices were even higher from there. So the average person is struggling. I mean, with the last car that I had, it was a 2016 Fusion. A full tank was $70. Now, living alone and being a single person, that was easy for me to, fill up and not have to worry about. But I know for so many others, that's not the case. So in terms of security, by moving to an electrification, similar to what my fellow Alex mentioned, is this energy is more localized. This energy is easier to fix and maintain and repair. And that way we don't have to worry about some of the stuff that happens when we see with some of our oil companies. Because in California, what happens every single time one of our friends in the oil sectors has an emergency, gas prices literally go up overnight. And in some cases, you'll watch the gas prices go up in the same day. I can give you a story. I can't remember what the name of the gas station was. But I was literally watching the gas prices go up 10 cents sitting from my car as I'm pulling up to the gas station. This was insane to watch. It was something out of a movie. So again, to highlight the main importance of this is that we have to do this because, one, this is just for the everyday consumer to live a comfortable life. But two, to our friends that don't think highly of us on the opposite side of the world, this is another way that we can move away from them and not have to worry about some of the problems that we see back home. So, thank you.
Thank you. So let's take it from more the global to the local. The investments are really 40% of it going to Justice 40 communities in the US. So to any of the elected officials here, or anyone really, what are the benefits that you're seeing in your community that will help the folks in Justice 40 communities?
Hello. Hello again. So, being from Swissvale, Pennsylvania, it's a town of about 12,000 people, and being from a city like Pittsburgh, which is a very blue-collar town, we can see some great benefits from the Inflation Reduction Act. As I stated earlier, we talked about how we just got our first EV charging station in Swissvale. My area is the gateway to the Mon Valley, as we call it in Pittsburgh, which is the southwestern point of Allegheny County. So being able to have a EV charging station in a place like that was very crucial so that we can start changing to electric vehicles and use them in our region. Also, like I've stated before, Pittsburgh is a historically polluted city. For years, we have been known as America's dirtiest city. It's where we haven't got much funding when it comes to energy improvement. This Inflation Reduction Act, these funds will be absolutely great for us to clean up our air quality. Especially last year, if you remember the wildfires that came down from Canada, that had a big impact on my region. Even myself, as somebody who struggles with breathing issues, I had a tough time walking outside, and I worked with children at Penn State University, so we went on field trips, so it was a very hard time for me to walk outside. So being able to take these funds and invest in solar energy and cleaner renewable energy sources would help people like me and a lot of other people in my community be able to breathe better again. So I'm very grateful for this money, and just being one of many Justice 40 communities, we can see these funds turn our lives turn our lives up in a good way. So I'm very grateful for this. Thank you.
Anyone else want to jump in there?
I'm back again. And so one of the things I wanted to briefly mention was the investment in emission cutting. So with this, as I mentioned earlier, reducing our emissions in California is going to be crucial because, again, the Bay Area is one of the most densely populated places in the entire country. Hercules, even though we're up in the Bay Area, we actually beat LA for the worst traffic in the state, which I don't know if that's a proud title to have, but we did it. A couple years ago, I woke up to orange skies because of the fires that took place just north of us. And it felt like it was honestly out of a movie. To wake up and see orange skies, and I'm thinking, okay, well, I must be tripping. My eyes aren't working anymore. And to see so many other pictures of everyone else that I know that lives in the Bay Area facing the exact same thing, showcased to me that this is a bigger problem. So by having emissions reduced, because our fires, we're hoping that they eventually can reduce in size and magnitude, that's just one less thing that we have to worry about at home. So again, these are all important steps to make our lives a lot better.
All right, for Yetide, we do have a question specifically for you, asking if you are interested in becoming more politically engaged.
Okay, I will start by saying that is a wonderful question. I do have to say that my experience in this past few days, working with all these incredible elected officials, learning from everybody, has definitely inspired me to want to be a further part of this. And since we're talking specifically about the Inflation Reduction Act, one thing that jumped out to me immediately was the fact that, as we say in Hollywood, no one ever wants to be the villain. But there's always something driving what one considers to be a negative act. And add to that, not having the ability to put food on the table, worrying about where the next paycheck will come from. When you tell someone like that, worry about the environment, they don't really feel the need to connect to that idea. And one of the most amazing things about this act is it creates so many jobs. Now people can put food on their table. Now people can take a moment to breathe. And now people can say, wait a minute, I'm doing that thing you were asking about in helping the environment. So to put it succinctly, the answer to your question is yes.
Amazing. So we have one question here that we might not get to everyone because we only have a couple minutes, but very succinctly, what is the biggest impact you think the IRA, or Inflation Reduction Act, will have in the population you serve? So if you can pop up here for maybe 30 seconds each and say, what is that impact that the populations you serve regarding the Inflation Reduction Act? You can kind of popcorn it, so it'll give you time to think.
I think it would be fantastic that we don't have to pay for energy anymore. The earth hits us with enough energy every day from the sun, and if we're currently collecting it, we just need to figure out how to store it. So come on, inventors. I'm here to fund new inventions. Let's figure out how to store so that we can continue distributing, and then we don't have to pay for this anymore.
And our community is bringing awareness to the problem. As I mentioned before when I spoke, we weren't having these conversations. For some reason, in these smaller communities, and I think a lot of it has to do with that we just think we're exempt from the problem because we don't have the resources to solve the problem. So in Jonesboro now, we're seeing things like charging stations. They're common. They weren't outside of town before. And we're also educating people on how they can change their homes. So they're getting better appliances, but they're getting cheaper bills. So it's having a huge fiscal impact. And also for small cities, we have small budgets. So when we're able to get these funding to fund electric vehicles, that means I don't have to pay for fuel for our gas vehicles. So it's a circular effect, and we're seeing it all across. It's just a great opportunity, again, for us to be part of a larger solution and a powerful conversation.
To echo what my colleague mentioned, one of the big things is honestly the EV stock that we have in town is actually growing, which is really exciting, especially given the Bay Area. We're the tech hub of the world. But at the same time, too, it's really job creation. Listen, I love the Bay Area, but it's definitely the place of the haves and the have-nots. And there's a lot of missing middle-class jobs that the Bay Area just doesn't offer, and that number is greatly dwindling. So by doing this, we can invest in the Bay Area, the Central Valley, the Central Coast, everywhere around the state, especially in the counties that really need it the most. The Bay Area is in no shortage of economic opportunities, but our friends in San Joaquin County, Mono County, Inyo, Tehama, you name it, are in definite need of these resources, and I'm excited for them.
I think for me and how it's going to benefit my community, again, I'm from Maine. We still have oil delivered to our house to heat our homes. I have to fill up, I'll probably have to do it today after we leave here. I literally have to make a call and say, hey, deliver the oil to my house so I can have heat. Maine just received about $50 to $75 million in order to provide rebates for our citizens to get out of heat pumps. So that will put us onto the electric grid and get us off the oil grid. But yeah, this is a monumental. I mean, this will put thousands of heat pumps and take us off that oil dependence. I mean, directly, we have to have it shipped to our house so I can have heat. That's how a lot of northern states have. And I think that this act is really going to help solve that issue, really work on in incentivizing people to get onto the heat pumps and get off the oil delivery system for heating. Thank you.
I think for myself, for the Pittsburgh region, what's most important about this bill is cleaner air quality. It's something we struggle with a lot in Allegheny County. Also, just last week, we just approved to purchase our first EV garbage truck. So it was a lot of money that will be delivered next year, but that'll have cleaner air for all of our residents. And also job creation. That is something that is very important. We see a lot of people who are struggling with finding jobs. I hear from constituents all the time about how hard it is to find a job. So I'm excited for these new union clean energy jobs that'll bring high-paying jobs to our county, as well as provide cleaner air for those around us.
In the United Kingdom, we obviously don't have an Inflation Reduction Act, but what I draw from the inspiration that I can take out of this room and back to my colleagues across the United Kingdom is that need to be community first in everything that we do. And when I say community first, that means that when we look to put solar panels on a secondary school, we need to be thinking about who created those solar panels. Did it benefit local jobs? But actually, more importantly, did it undermine in our purchasing of those solar panels our national security and the security of our allies by where either the production of those assets come from or the investors in the production of those assets? And to my inspirational elected American colleagues here in the room today, what I would say is this is your opportunity to reassert American influence and American leadership in the world. So those projects that you just mentioned and the many, many more projects that I'm sure you will come up with over your term in office, share them with the world. Be bold with that American leadership. Take it back to all of us so that we, when our time comes, can learn from you and accelerate at the same pace as you. Thank you.
Well, thank you, everyone. We're very excited to be here on the second anniversary of the Inflation Reduction Act because it truly is creating a more healthy planet, more prosperous planet, and a more secure planet for everyone. Thank you.